Hey, folks, this is Scott. We are here live, Archery Unhinged. Me and Jason, man, we had technical difficulties this afternoon. So, anyways, we got two special guests with us today. We got Mr. Trainwreck over here. If nobody knows who this guy is, he's bigger than life.
Thanks, Scott.
Come on now. And we got, reason we did this so quickly, we got Mr. George Ryals, all the way from the beautiful state of Georgia. Is that correct, George?
Yes. Hey, everybody.
Awesome. All right. So I think we hopefully got everything ironed out. My wife's going to text me here and say, yeah, you guys are good, or no, you're screwed. So the reason we wanted to do this one so quick is I don't know if you guys have seen, and George, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot a little bit.
You're just going to go straight to it.
We're just going right to it, dude. You know, and honestly, I've been kind of jonesing for this one all day today. I've talked to a bunch of my colleagues and constituents about, you know, we may just pull out all the stops and just talk about all the I don't know, the holy grails of archery that, quite frankly, can or may not be right, may or may not be wrong. You know, social media has created such a firestorm of professionals now in our sport, and it's crazy, you know, how influential they can be and are calling out. And honestly, I was taken a little aback by yesterday's blow up, and I know you posted this, I think, on Friday or Saturday. You know, and just to give you guys some background.
It's actually Ty Jordan's post.
Okay, so it was Ty's. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's Ty's post, and then, you know, he added me as a collaborator. And that one little clip of me talking about nose buttons, you know, you don't get to see the before or the after.
Right.
But there's a whole bunch of other sacred cows that got killed that day. So I'm going to be getting some heat from all the people here for a little while.
Well, you know, and it's kind of...
When they post it all, I'm going to be in trouble.
Well, I'll tell you what, you know, because you've been on this podcast before, we've talked about some of these things that are, you know, we don't know why some of these things have happened in archery and how they've gotten, you know, we've been down these rabbit holes with them, things that are quite frankly aren't right. And you called it out and you made a comment, and it's your, you know, your perception, but it is the reality. And honestly, I was a little taken aback because, you know, I think you're one of the best coaches, best technical advisors in the sport that we enjoy, period, today. And I think when, you know, some of the comments that I were reading in the follow-up to Ty's post, it was pretty shocking. And I was like, man, we need to set this straight because, I don't know. I agree with you 1,000%, and I've argued with Jason about this a million times and a lot of people.
But you argue with everybody.
Yeah, I do. I argue with everybody, exactly. But I wanted you to get a chance to set the record straight, kind of talk through, you know, what was, you know, kind of like you said, the before and after, because there may have been some context that was taken, you know, out of context because we didn't hear the beginning of it. But it's kind of interesting because a lot of people kind of jumped on your case a little bit about this, and some very prominent names, which I was surprised to hear from, you know, and, you know, what's your take on that whole thing?
Well, you know, it's a polarizing issue, you know, for sure. And this isn't the first time I've said this out loud. I've made, you know, 100 videos teaching people how to do this and explaining completely the what and the why. But the thing in question was I told Ty, we were at the Pennsylvania Total Archery Challenge. And we were doing what I call a coaching course walk, where I take them around the course and we look at the target presentation. We say, okay, here's what you should do here, or here's how to treat, you know, this particular thing, like it's way uphill, how to set yourself up for that, you know, all of those things. And it became clear to me his draw was a tiny bit on the short side, but he's pulling and tipping his head forward to touch his nose to the string. And I said to him, I said, all of that head movement and changes after full draw will make it impossible for you to maintain a sharp level of consistency. And my biggest, you know, thing that I preach is to put yourself in a body position that you're going to be in at full draw first, so you can control the consistency, because, you know, let's face it, all bows are consistent and we all run to the tune, but we know that bow, if you put it in a shooting machine, it will pound arrows into each other when you remove all shooter inconsistency. Okay,
right,
so that
right.
being said, He was pulling and making adjustments and tipping his head, and he wasn't even sure that his sight marks were on because it was somewhat random. And I mentioned to him, I was like, look, man, you're kind of moving this out of shape. So instead, just pull the bow back, put the pin in the middle, and then put the peep in front of your eyeball, but leave your head still.
Right.
And use the action of this hand to put the peep in front of your eyeball. So that way, you can put your body on the target, then pull the bow and put the bow and its pressure direction in between you and the target, just like you would a rifle. You look at something in the distance, you have your eyes on it, and you put the rifle in front of your eyes. The same thing, right? And archery really is nothing but straight lines and anchor points, right? And pressure direction. And I told Ty, I was like, man, you don't have to touch that nose button, because what you touch to the string is not what's making you accurate, because the peep sight controls the entire show.
Everything.
What you do other than the peep sight doesn't matter that much. And I discovered this, 30 years ago. I'm sitting behind one of the very first, shooting machines, and I'm leaning my eye over, and I'm looking, and I'm turning these dials to get the bow sighted into dead center. And I noticed that no matter how I moved my head, the pin stayed in the middle. And then I could touch the string and see what an impact that had on the relationship between the peep sight and the scope.
Right.
And on a high let-off bow, and back then bows were only 50%, but a high let-off bow nowadays, just the slightest, let me kind of demo with this. So you've got everything set, and if I have various pressure differences on the string, that totally changes the relationship between the peep and the target. Because if I press only a tiny bit once and then I press heavy on the next one, it's like moving your peep sight up and down in the string in between shots. There's no consistency there.
Correct.
So I told him, I said, just keep your head steady. Don't worry about touching anything. Just touch your anchor, your hand, to the side of your face, so that this unsteadiness doesn't make the pin unsteady. Look through the peep, make sure it's centered with the target, put the pin in the middle of the target, and then let it go, right? And he saw instant improvement in his consistency as he was moving forward. Well, during that discussion, I was like, just don't touch the nose button, just look through the hole. And he goes, well, here, cut it off. I was like, no, we don't have to cut it off. You can just ignore it right now. And they're like, no, cut it off. So that was for the show, right?
That's the click.
Four
That's the
cameras
clickbait.
there. Everybody's filming, MFJJ was like, cut it off, right? And I take my knife out and I cut it off and I handed it to him, and he went back to shooting. Nothing changed. His sight settings didn't change. He didn't start unexplainedly missing or anything. He was just setting his body up to the target, putting the pin on, and then the peep so that he can control consistency. And he saw remarkable improvement in just a short second.
Right.
My problem with coaching today, and this is what we're bumping into, is coaches hear the thing. You must have a solid anchor. You must touch your nose to the string. You must, right? And that was true when we were shooting recurve bows without peep sights, right?
Right.
Your nose had to be touching the string, because if the angle changes, your head has to maintain orientation to the bow. Once you put a peep in there, the peep forces orientation. So your eye makes a straight line through the peep, through the pin, and to the target, regardless of what's touching the string, right? And just sitting behind your bow, behind a shooting machine and pounding arrows at 70 meters, right? You can see that it doesn't matter where your head is, it's a hit.
Right.
If you're comfortable with the nose touching the string, totally fine. Go ahead and touch it, but don't touch it too much, right? If you touch it enough to actually deform the skin, you may be changing the relationship of the pin and the peep and the target,
Right.
causing high-low misses, and you don't know what's going on. You think you dropped your arm, you think you dragged it, you think you held low, whatever, and you don't realize that just the inconsistent pressure on the face, makes a difference. And the pressure on the side of the face, if you have a really deep anchor, like people get into trouble when they draw the bow, touch their anchor, and then move their head and look through the peep. That's where they get the various differences in pressure. Right. To counteract that, I tell people, pull the bow, get the peep as close as you can, but don't quite touch it. Look through the hole first. And at that point, if your nose is set up where it can actually reach, the string will be there. It'll be touching just a light whisker, right?
Right.
But look through the peep first before you touch your anchor. That way you're not changing your head orientation or the pressure on the string so that you get inconsistent left-rights.
Right.
And I also said in the video, which you'll probably see it, MFJJ will post it in its full form, I'm sure. But one of the things that I was telling them is that when you get to full draw and you put the peep close to your eye and you look through it first, that stops you from touching too much. If you want to know whether if face pressure is an issue for you, right, you can draw your bow and then hang your eyeball over and just look through the hole without touching your face with your backhand or without touching your nose or anything. Just shoot it clear without touching anything. If it hits dead center at 20 yards, you're fine. You don't have any problems.
Right.
But if you're a right-handed shooter and you're shooting with significant face pressure and you miss that much to the right when you're not touching, that's face pressure that you've sighted in. So if it's more left. If it's less, it's more right. So you end up shooting a group that's scattered in the center and it trails out both sides.
Right.
And that's consistent with face pressure, various face pressure on the string.
Yeah.
And all of these people that are naysaying, now we know why, we're just going to say the nose button manufacturer is in there peeping about it because to him it feels like a hit on nose buttons.
Correct.
Right? And that was not a hit on nose buttons. I try my best to be brand, agnostic and try not to, tell you that your product is garbage or, whatever, because, you bought it, you like it, right? But he got in there with a lot of negativity and, that's set all these world records and all. That's cool, right? Ella Gibson, phenomenal shooter. If she wants to use a nose button to touch her nose to the string, crazy, go get it, right? But if you're having trouble vertically, you're shooting a high let-off, short axle to axle hunting bow, right? You may not be able to touch your nose, right? You've got two choices, right? You can anchor low so you get plenty of distance and your nose can't touch without dipping your head to it, or you can anchor high so that you can touch the nose but you lose potential distance overall. Yep. Because your peep is lower. Yep. Right? And you can do it both ways. What I was telling Ty in the video is you don't need it, right? It's not critical that your nose touches. Like top pro from yesteryear, Shane Wills, he would pull his bow and not touch anything. He'd just park his eyeball behind the peep, right? And he would shoot. Won a ton of tournaments doing that. Jesse Broadwater will teach you just the finest whisker of a touch, and he has 100% clearance with his face if you look at any photos, right? So that he doesn't have any left, rights, or high-low, but he identifies his face with the string with just the whisker of a touch. And he was the first one I heard say, if the skin deforms, right, it's too much.
Yeah.
Because that could cause a deflection of the string, which changes the relationship of the sight and make you miss.
Right.
And be a little bit random about it.
It's
so
interesting.
I love that Ty's post got, almost 300 comments, and God knows how many views he got. That's probably the best performing post he got. And I love those people in there telling me, I don't know anything about archery and all, because this ain't the first time I've been crucified online for teaching people how to do something cool.
You talked about so many things that probably need to be unpacked, like, and I've seen it in owning the shop that, the short bows are the latest craze. These guys shooting 28-inch triacs, 30-inch, and these guys are 30 to 31-inch in draw length. And, most shops, the first thing they do to get that anchor point and that nose on there, they will over draw length the archer. Basically move them to If they're a 29, let's say, they move them to 30 so they can get back in there and get the string to touch the nose without turtlenecking to get into the string so much. And and that in itself, has a whole another host of issues behind it. And even with Ty out there shooting tack, and I've always said this, somebody like Jason Tabansky that shoots W1 para archery, he has no peep sight, so there's no reference there for him. I think the nose button has a place. Back in the 80s.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, 70s and 80s, before peep sights were a thing, we had kisser buttons. I used to tie them in with a bunch of material or a knock set, put a knock set there to get in a corner of our mouth to have that reference so that our alignment to the pin could be somewhat repeatable. And that's all Jason's doing, so I think it has a place for it. But I've tried to educate a lot of our people around here and even people that I've worked with and coach is that, if you're going to shoot varying yardages across different terrains, different footing, shooting uphill, downhill, the nose button going from 20 yards to, let's say, 100 yards on a field archery course, or 80, I think the nose button becomes somewhat of a barrier and can inhibit your accuracy. I think it's
exactly right, because the nose button is going to be optimal, like at that one distance. So let's say if you you're going to tack, and you set your peep and your nose button to be optimal at, say, 60 yards.
Yep.
So then it's a small trade-off out over 100 and a small trade-off, up close. But that nose button, if you set it up at 20 and then moved your sight to 100, you wouldn't be able to touch the nose button and see the scope through your peep.
Nope.
Because the angle is too great.
Yeah, and that's what I always are. I always even show them. If you got you set everything up at, let's say, 20 yards, which is what most people end up doing. It's the holy grail, I call it, of hunting. 20-yard shots, and then all of a sudden you go to tack, and that scope's down here at 100, and your peep sight's still in the same spot. How do you get there? You got to drop your anchor point to get your face up over top of it to look down on. Because I think you and I have talked about this, and I've been trying to educate people on this subject matter. Because I'm totally against those super bright scope rings that all these manufacturers make. Because then I hear it all.
Yeah, it's not necessary.
No, it's completely not necessary. I take them off. I shoot a black scope with no housing. And you constantly argue with these people. I'm always trying to tell them, rifling the center of the pin inside the center of the peep controls 100% of the shot. And then, and they waste, I call it a wasted process to make sure your scope housing and your peep housing match. I know guys that will spend days changing apertures and to make sure that housing, moving the sight in and out to get that relationship perfect so that they don't get what they call torque. And I understand that.
And that's the whole reason that I even bother to tell everybody about the whole centering and all that, is because people are going to a bigger peep sight so that they can see their scope housing in bright ambient light, like out in the middle of a field or something.
Yep.
And they're losing accuracy, significantly losing accuracy, because if your peep is 1/4 inch, you can be off plus minus 1/8 of an inch and hit high or low. Completely miss a deer at 40 yards,
all day.
High or low.
All day. Yep.
But an 1/8 inch peep sight transmits the maximum light that your eye can even use. So any bigger than 1/8 of an inch is completely unnecessary. It causes a significant loss in forgiveness and overall accuracy at distance. So I tell everybody, use the smallest hole your peep will, the lighting will allow, right?
Correct.
And circle that with the target and make sure the pin's in the target. And because your pin is in the middle of the scope's lined up whether if you can see it or not. It doesn't matter.
Correct.
Right? Because the pin and the target's what matters. And I said in that long thread that one guy was talking about centering the scope housing, and it was like, originally the scope housing was just there to protect our pins.
That's all it was there for.
Exactly. It used to be a box, around our pins, so we couldn't knock our pins off.
Right.
There was nothing to center up until like 2005 when they started putting color rings. And I don't know who comes up with this and how erroneous or incorrect information gets so far.
Yeah.
And then one will listen to sense or the truth. Nobody will listen, and then they go on the attack
Exactly.
And it's just like, dude,
Yeah.
I'm not here to beg you to be accurate. I'm just giving you some information. Try it. Don't try it. Don't even care. But I'm here to help you get better. If you don't want to do it, don't do it.
Well, it's funny.
Right?
I used to keep a Martin Cougar Magnum that I shot when I was a kid, and it had the piece of metal with the brass pin that I used to dip in my mom's fingernail polish, and it had a square piece of wire to guard the pin. And I used to bring it out and show people.
Yeah.
I'd be like, okay, so how do you center this in your peep? I need you to explain that to me, because this is not, this just came about within the last 20 years, and these guys look at you like, oh, you guys had to suck back then. I'm like, no, there's tons of world records that are still sitting today.
Have you seen the pin that I'm shooting with now?
Yeah, exactly. You're shooting with
I
no
took
housing.
the whole housing off of it.
Right.
I
You're
know I
shooting
don't have
just
a
a
peep,
pin.
but if I had a peep on there, what am I going to center on? I cannot align.
can't.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
took that out completely. It's just a fiber.
Yeah, so those are some of those things that, it's hard because, like you said, George, the internet has exploded with information from people. I mean, I hate to say this, but we're called Archery Unhinged for a reason, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. We listen to a lot of people on the internet that, quite frankly, you have probably forgotten more about archery than they're going to probably ever know. Some
And
of
that's
them,
the
some
big
of them,
thing
less than
is
10
you don't-
years.
Yeah. You don't need a license to give archery tips online, so you can just say anything. And if you got enough viewers and people that can make sense out of what you're saying, they're going to follow what you say. I see people with 10 seconds of archery experience. They got a whole Instagram channel about giving, advice, and that's cool. And I'm not going to jump in there and say you're totally wrong and you
Right.
shouldn't do it this way, because that's not my place, right? I'll just tell my thing, but I don't hop into other pros' posts, even if I think they're saying something incorrect. I don't get in there and correct them.
Right.
I let them have their say, and I move on. And it's kind of uncool to jump in there and say, you don't know what you're talking about. I totally disagree. And, they're all friends of the nose button manufacturer.
Oh,
so,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
everybody knows what's going on there.
Oh yeah. Well, there were a couple colorful comments after his post, which I thought was hilarious. But it's unfortunate because I'm all of the school of innovation. People think of different ways to do things to make things better for us as archers, and I think there's a lot of that out there. Some good stuff coming out potentially, but there are also things that are taken, I think, and built into shot processes that in my opinion, are a complete waste of time. They're teaching the wrong habits. They're teaching the wrong, and then what happens is people end up not getting the result that they're looking for, and they may say, okay, this archery thing's not for me, and to your point, because that nose button thing has always been polarizing for me because people don't realize. It's always shocking when I tell a guy I'll draw back a bow and I'll say, hey, push on that string, and the look on their face is kind of funny because they're expecting that string at full draw to be under max tension, max load. And when they can push that string like 2 or 3 inches, they're like, oh my gosh. It just, their look is hilarious.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to
Right.
explain to them that, so you imagine how much little pressure it takes to move the dynamic position of that peep sight at any given time by you putting facial pressure on it in any capacity. So it's funny because I've actually told people, go home and try it. Draw it back and have your wife push on that string, and it'll shock you. And then you'll start to realize how much that pressure can end up maybe making your shot worse than it's making it better.
Well, if you look at it like from our world, from our point of view, go tell Matt Stutzman to put his nose on his string.
Exactly.
It's not going to happen.
And Stutzman will beat you
And
every
that
day
dude
and
can shoot.
beat the brakes off of you.
He's not even gripping the bow right, and he's still whipping everybody.
Yeah, he's torquing it.
Exactly.
So, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Andre Shelby, those are just people that I know personally that don't do that.
Yeah. Well, I coach a couple ladies that don't. They, one of them, she has a PTSD thing with face, things close to her face for things that happened to her in the service, and I told her, just don't do it. It's not a requirement. You have to make sure that your pin is in the center of your peep sight and that you can see it clearly, and your shot will break and you'll hit what you're looking at for the most part. But that's tough sometimes because it goes against everything that is being talked about on the internet right now amongst a lot of people, and it makes it tough.
Yeah, and knowing everybody's going to come out of the woodwork when you try to teach them something new, and they're going to get all offended because it doesn't match, what they've been told.
Yeah.
It's funny. The first time that I had a massive like uprising from giving a tips way back in the archery talk days, I taught people how to do this thing called creep tuning, and they got in there and they argued with me. I mean, just tooth and nail. And nowadays, it's a standard procedure, and
100%.
Nobody even knows where it came from, even. But they argue with me just as hard as they're arguing about this nose button thing. So I'm used to it. I figured out a long time ago you can't make anybody listen. All you can do is just tell them right, and the rest of it's up to them.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I just wanted you to get a chance to level set it, because I think, once again, my opinion, it's got a place. I think the 50-meter game, USAT tournaments, but I think when you're looking at field archery, 3D, even TAC, I don't see how it's relevant. I don't see how they do it personally. It's just,
Yeah, for like shooting a world record with a nose button at 50 meters, right? Of course,
100%.
You can do that because it's one single distance.
Correct.
But then any kind of variable distance, variable angle, like 3D field and TAC, right, is going to uncover all of that stuff, all of those sacred cows out there that everybody sticks to like tooth and nail. It uncovers, and they struggle just shooting uphill or shooting downhill,
right,
because they're listening to advice that has no bearing on actual form at all. Like somebody said it 20 years ago and everybody just kept saying it. And nobody will come out and say otherwise, because you see what happens when you do.
Yeah, you get thrown to the wolves.
Nobody's going to be brave enough to tell it like it is.
Well, and I hate to say that, but some of the guys I think, and Pete, that comment, they might not even know who you are. I've defended you in front of people. He's arguably the greatest archery coach on the planet right now, period. I don't think anyone holds a candle. Technically versed, form, shooting. You're the grandfather, Bubba. I hate to say it.
God, don't call me grandfather so quick. Jesus.
Hey, I'm right behind you. But, so it maybe goes to, how do you feel about it, Trainwreck? What are your thoughts?
I've always been a big fan of George. I mean, the best score I shot internationally was with George behind me. I had no idea who he was really, other than, kind of a reputation, but met him in Colombia, came home with a silver medal. But really, since then, though, I've been down to see George at his place. If you get a chance to work with Coach George Ryals, I'd say jump on it.
Yeah, he's the guru. Sure. Well,
plus he's got a good beard.
Yeah, he's a good-looking guy. But you know what? You cut your hair. You got rid of the locks.
Yeah, my hair's close.
Yeah, you got close.
Yeah, I during COVID, I did the whole hair thing. Just it's like I don't know how much longer it's going to stay on my head, so I better grow it out and just see what it looks like.
Yeah, that's good. Well, so maybe another one that I know that we talked about, I think, in the past, and I think you've done some videos on this, and I kind of wanted to make this, dispelling the myths that are out there, is like arrow clocking. That's another one that comes up a lot. I hear guys talking about clocking arrows, when they're building arrows, to make sure that they're spinning the arrow, left helical, right helical, so on and so forth. What's your take on that one?
So, yes. Depending on whether if your string is twisted clockwise or whether if it's twisted counterclockwise, the arrow will rotate on its own coming out of the bow, right? And it's the string's twist and how, because you pull it back to full draw and it's only got 10 or 12 pounds, and then it goes to 80 pounds, so that causes the string to tighten up or basically change length as it's shooting the arrow.
Right.
So, yes, it will put rotation on the arrow. It will rotate left or it will rotate right. But fixing it or promoting that rotation with your helical direction has no bearing on accuracy whatsoever. And the only reason that we even have, this is the thing that shocks most people. I say, do you even know why we have left and right helical? Is back in the day when everybody shot feathers.
Feathers and recurves.
A bird has got a right wing and it's got a left wing.
Yeah.
And when you curl your hand, that's the direction that the feather curls on the right wing and the left wing. So when you split that, one curls this way and one curls that way, right? So they're not going to throw away half of the bird. They're going to fletch it, right? So the only real reason that you would even care whether if it was right or left helical is that if in cases left helical tends to clear a right-handed bow better, and right helical tends to clear a left helical, right helical tends to clear a left-handed bow
Correct.
better. And it's just because of the orientation of the fletching's point versus the back. It hadn't got anything to do with arrow rotation or any of that. It's just right where the fletching tracks through before the arrow has even rotated even the first time, just as it's leaving. You may find that left helical will clear your blade rest a little bit better than right helical if you're right-handed, just by looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
With vanes, it doesn't matter. With feathers, if you have a left-wing feather, it's got to be fletched left helical. If it's a right-wing feather, it's got to be fletched right helical, and that's why that exists.
Right.
But the arrow clocking thing, the amount of time that tuning procedure takes for the amount of gain that you get, the gain is going to be zero. And if you had spent any of that time on your shot execution, you'd be that much ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I've been talking about that one for a long time because dynamically the arrow starts to spin when the vanes start catching air and start to either spin
Right.
clockwise or counterclockwise. That controls the everything. I mean, I always compare it to, flying an aircraft. We have wings on an aircraft to create directional control, and the vanes do the same thing. And whether the arrow wants to naturally spin left or right, it doesn't matter. The launch velocity of the arrow and the vanes will start steering it at as soon as it starts to get to a certain amount of speed, and regardless of which way the arrow wants to spin. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's really just about more drag on the tail end of the arrow
Correct.
than what's on the front.
Correct.
Keeps the arrow flying straight. And the rotation itself gives it stability in flight.
Yeah.
So it doesn't knuckleball right away.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy because you read on the internet, I'm sure you've seen it, the amount of people that are putting credence to that process when they're building arrows. And, some of these guys get into what we call these hyper arrow builds, these build processes that are they're so long, they're long, they take time.
Mega
they
waste
take
of
effort,
time.
A mega waste of time. Yeah, exactly.
And don't get me wrong, I used to do that. Like one of my first bow tuning videos, I went through, I used to go buy it on DVD, and I went through this whole complicated, making sure everything is straight and weighed the same and, all that stuff. And then over the years, I realized that the gain in that the product, regardless of what arrow, brand that you choose, but if whichever arrow brand that you choose, the components fit well enough and the shaft is, manufactured with tight enough tolerances that the assemblage of all the pieces and parts, it still should be plus minus a grain.
Mm-hmm.
But you said Black Eagle? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Easton, it doesn't matter which Easton arrow you pick, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I thought you said, Black Eagle. Yeah.
Hey,
right.
do you really want to get some people in the comments? I've got another sacred cow that is super popular, right? And it fits right in with the whole arrow clocking.
Is it bear shaft tuning?
Talking about bear shaft tuning.
Well, we can get into that in a minute.
Okay, let's do another one.
But-
Okay,
Right? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Send it.
The stiff side of the arrow.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh Lord, here we go.
Here we go. Right? The stiff side. This is one of those things that came from the 60s that people keep doing, right? And first, let's think about it here just for a second. You have a tube, and that tube has a consistent wall thickness all the way around, and it is made of premium material, right? If you have a tube with a significantly stiff side, I'm talking 25 thousandths is what it would really take, to really cause a difference,
Right.
Within your dozen. But if it truly has a stiff side, that tube that you have is a piece of junk, and it needs to be culled out of the set. And if you look, if you rotate, you know, I had a gazillion-dollar spine tester at Martin Archery, and I tested all this stuff out completely. So I'm just not talking, you know, I'm not just talking without testing here.
Right.
I actually tested all this, right? But if you rotate the shaft and, you know, spine tested it every 10 degrees and plot it out on a circle graph, it would just be a furry circle, right? It wouldn't be a significant enough. However, if you take the wooden arrow and put it on a spine tester, it'll draw a peanut, because there's a significant stiffer side on a wooden arrow, right? And that's because of the grain in the arrow runs left to right through the arrow. So when you're edge grained, it's stiffer, and when you're pushing into the grain, it's weaker significantly. So if your nocks weren't placed identically with the grain on the shaft, your arrows would scatter all over the place because they would be significantly different spines.
Right.
So somebody read about that in Howard Hill's Hunting the Hard Way and said, you know what, I should check stiff side on my compound arrows. Totally not paying any attention whatsoever that we're shooting a precision tube that should never have a stiff side.
Right.
And all the arrow companies that mark the stiff side on the shaft, do you think they're spine testing each one of those individually and like making a mark? What they really do is they got this big triangle shaped hopper that they put all the shafts in, and it vibrates down, and one arrow at a time lands on a track. And it rolls down the track, and a pad printer, click, clunk, click, clunk, click, clunk, click, clunk, and as the arrow rolls through, the pad printer puts the logo on it. Technically, the arrow companies are not lying, right? Because every side of the shaft is the stiff side of the shaft, because it's a tube, right? Every side is the correct spine, right? From any direction. So they're not lying to you, but everybody wants to know what the stiff side is because of all this erroneous, you know, marketing, that if they don't have that little mark, they don't think it's a quality arrow.
Right.
So the manufacturers just give you what you want. They don't care whether it's right or not. You want a stiff side mark? Okay, there you go. Here's a stiff side.
Right.
Right.
They have to. That's marketing.
I get into a lot of trouble when I talk about that. They argue tooth and nail.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, it's part of, you know, and I hate to say it, we just started doing it at Black Eagle this year.
But you guys put them in a bathtub, right, and let them float.
Yeah, we float
the
them.
right way.
Float test them.
Okay, just making sure.
the air pockets are where they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Put a Sharpie.
That was
on
the
top.
first thing I actually tested from Archery Talk, was the floating it in the bathtub thing.
Oh yeah.
I actually tested that out.
Yeah, I did. I did it for years. Back when the ACCs and ACEs were around. You know, 2117 Easton Game Getters. We used to float all of them, thinking it was making us better.
ACCs and ACEs, man, those were precision arrows.
Dude.
And there wasn't a whole lot of precision in the archery industry, you know, at the time when those came out. Right now, we got a whole bunch of arrow manufacturers that make a quality product.
100%.
But back then, there wasn't much at all.
No, those were the creme de la creme for sure in our industry. Remember Beeman came out, that solid carbon tube.
Oh yeah, man.
Beemans. Oh yeah,
I
they
shot
were
those
trying
for a little bit.
So did I. Yeah, the weight ratio on them was insane. You know, compared to ACCs and ACEs. So what's your take? The big one for me, and this is one that I argue tooth and nail with guys about, is bear shaft tuning. I mean, I think, my opinion, probably the most polarizing subject when it comes to tuning your bow and whether it's a needed requirement for a compound archer. I think we've talked about this before too with you, but
we may have. Here's the thing. If you bear shaft tune your bow, you're not hurting yourself at all.
Okay.
Right? But you don't have to bear shaft tune your bow, right? Because getting a perfect hole through the paper with a flat shaft or a bare shaft, all that really says is, yes, the arrow is flying straight out of the bow and the bow is functioning within manufacturer's standards, right?
Right.
And if you get a bow that will not, you know, shoot a hole, then you start looking for accessories or, wheel timing or, issues with the bow to get it within factory standard. And then it shoots a hole through the paper once you get everything lined up. The real tuning happens at distance when you're comparing your groups or you're flying your broadheads and comparing those to your field tips and you're trying to bring those together. Now, in the sense of a broadhead, you can shortcut yourself a little bit by bare shaft planing first before you start shooting your blades, and get your bare shaft super close, and your blades are probably going to be dead on too.
Right.
And that just saves you from having to shoot up all your broadheads and everything. You just at least get it close, and then you double check all your distances with an actual blade, and then you're good to go. But bare shaft testing, aside from paper tuning, it doesn't hurt you, but it's not necessary. A paper tune to begin is plenty.
Right.
Right. All that extra is not helping you. Group tuning at a distance will help you in target archery.
Oh yeah, tremendously. Yeah, and I've always said that too. Like I'm just not a fan of if you're gonna I know some guys that bare shaft tune a dozen arrows. They'll shoot 12 arrows through there, spin that nock until they get that perfect hole, and then go through and mark them accordingly and fletch them accordingly. And it's a very laborious process. And I still am of the opinion that as soon as you put vanes on an arrow, you change the dynamic properties of that arrow so tremendously that all that pre-work that was done has been negated. I mean,
yeah, but even still, adding the vanes to the back, unless they're super heavy, adding the vanes to the back and all that, yes, it does change the spine of the arrow, and it does change the dynamic, but it's so granular that I don't think it's that significant.
Yeah.
Right between the two.
There's a guy. Go ahead.
If you're standing in front of the paper, shooting your quiver out through the paper, if you can shoot one arrow 12 times and get the exact same tear, then you can probably shoot your quiver out and get the exact same tear.
That's a good point.
But if you can't shoot that one arrow 12 times and get a perfect hole every single time, you're not a good enough shooter to check every arrow and verify that there actually is a problem with that arrow. Use a shooting machine instead.
Right.
And it'll probably shoot all the arrows exactly the same. Because it takes hardly anything. Just a little pressure direction change in the grip that's barely noticeable. You can make it tear right, tear it left. You walk it around the clock just by changing your grip in the bow.
Yeah, we have a good friend of mine, Greg Copeland. You may know him. Greg, he loves. Greg loves to get online. He'll shoot a 70-yard group, and it'll be inside of the quarter, with 4 arrows. And then he'll shoot a bare shaft that'll be 4 inches high and right, like a 2 o'clock side, and he'll say, "Tell me I need to bare shaft to my bow."
I will tell you this: if you group tune your bow like he probably has,
that's what he does. Yeah.
It will not shoot a perfect hole through the paper anymore. It will not shoot a bare shaft in the bullseye, but it will group like Jesus is shooting.
So it's funny you say that. One of the things that we talk about here a lot is that you go through and start with paper, get it close, get it perfect if that what makes you feel good, and then do your walk back tune, do your group tune, do your torque tuning, your French tuning, and your creep tuning, and all those things, but never go back and shoot it through paper again. And I have actually had one of the guys that I work with a lot. We did all this work to get him shooting what I call maximum accuracy at 50 yards, and then he made the big mistake. He went to a shop and he shot through paper. Well, he calls me freaking out. We got to retune my bow. We got to go back and do it. My paper tear is terrible, and I'm like, you can't do that. I told you not to, because then it's in his head. And he goes out and shoots one bad score, and now the world's falling apart because it's his paper tune. Because with what you said, I think is really accurate. A lot of the professionals, they don't get perfect tunes.
Yeah.
They run them through paper, and they may know I like a high left tear. That's where my bow likes to be. It's where I like to aim. It's where I like to shoot well. And once they get it there, they know they're good.
Starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a couple of top pros out there. Their bows will not shoot a bullet hole for them.
Exactly. I know 2 of them.
Well, hey, I'll tell you, one thing I'll do is after I do the group tuning at distance, is I'll come back to the paper tuner, and then I'll shoot all my arrows to the paper tuner at that point, trying to see which arrows aren't doing the same rip. I know it's going to be a different rip. It's not going to be the bullet hole or whatever anymore. But if I get
and it's
a weird arrow that comes out and rips the paper a different direction, then I'll spin a knock or something like that to try to bring it back to the rest of them. Just so I know that every arrow is coming out the same way.
Yeah.
And that flight from Last Chance Archery helps.
Yeah, that the flight check paper and you need all that.
Well, you know, it's funny.
But it's a good idea after you've group tuned to shoot a hole through the paper and just note, no, it's a half a shaft high left or whatever. So that way, if you ever need to work on your bow, or if you ever think that you are having a bow problem, if you go to the paper and shoot it through and it gives you that tiny bit of high left, then you know that it's fine. Mm-hmm. But if it tears something crazy, then you know, okay, I'm having a bow problem here and I need to figure this out.
Right, exactly. Well,
right.
It's an easy way to figure out, do you need to work on yourself or do you need to work on the bow?
Yeah, exactly. Well, go ahead, Solution.
Well, I was just going to say, I'll go back, I'll shoot 12 arrows through the paper, right? And odds are one or two of them aren't going to have the same tear. Spin the knock on them, and then all of a sudden the tears are all the same. But it just gives me the sense that every one of these arrows is coming out of my bow the same way.
Doing the same thing. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I started doing, and we
about
started
ready
working
to,
on
I was
it,
about ready
is,
to talk about this.
yeah, I'll paper tune, make sure that it feels good. And then one thing we did a couple weeks ago is I went back to about 20, 25 yards, something like that, shot it through paper, and saw, you know, trying to get a bullet hole then. And then I went out a distance and made sure that my arrow flight was good.
Yeah. So
And as long as my arrow flight is good and flying straight for my torque, my grip, everything like that, that gives me that peace of mind that my shots are going to be forgiving.
So it's crazy, George. What me and Jason started doing, I think, last year, we actually do what I call flight tuning. You know, I'll stand back behind Jason at 50 meters and literally watch his arrows, and you can see them. I mean, if you've been doing this sport as long as we have, you can see those arrows kicking tail left, tail right coming out of the bow. And then we will tune his bow at 50 meters to get what I call maximum arrow flight that is as straight as we can get it with all the variables that Jason has. And then I always tell Jason, now never paper tune it again.
Yeah.
Leave it alone. You know, and it works.
Just leave it alone. And you know, before somebody invented paper tuning, that's how guys set up their bows. They
100%.
just set it up based on the flight of the arrow.
Yeah.
We even had these little marabou feathers that we'd put just right in front of the knock so you could see the tail end really bright. Mm-hmm. So you could watch it kick and then know what to do.
Interesting point.
I don't know who invented paper tuning.
Well,
but
and that's the thing.
Showed up.
Well, and I always said the bear shaft tuning was something, and I'm not going to, you know, I shot recurve as a kid growing up in the 70s and 80s. Now, we did bear shaft tune to find what we called optimal spine for our recurves. You know, shooting
yeah, that's
off,
critical for recurve.
100%. Shooting off the shelf and with fingers, all those things matter. And I think what happened is that somewhere down the line, some compound guy read about it and said, hey, we need to do that in compound. We got to do that to get what we would consider to be a perfect tune. And once again, it's insanity. It really is. And you know, you said something before in the past, and I use this a lot now. You know, if these master tuners that are on social media would spend as much time behind their bow working on shot process as they did all these little nuances that we're talking about today, they would probably be much better archers. Honestly.
Absolutely. And I tell everybody, you know, a lot of us top pros, we've spent our entire lives looking for that magic setting on the bow, right? No one has found it yet. If there was such a thing, you could mail me your bow and I just apply the magic settings and I mail it back to you.
Yeah.
And then you break the world record with it the next day.
Shoot a concept.
But the real thing is it's the person and their level of consistency, not the bow.
Yeah.
Unless it's the Concept X, is that what you're saying, Jay?
Yeah, something like that. They have a magic button.
They got the magic button? Okay. Hey, so...
Yeah, I don't know what kind of secret sauce is in that bow, but it does shoot good.
So I got a phone call from a very, very respected colleague of mine, and I wanted to bring this up and get your take on it. I'm not going to say who it was. I'm not going to talk about it. There was a post made by somebody prominent within the sport today talking about strings. And string material basically is 100% impossible for string material, string building, as far as working with different, string weights, as far as, 34 strands versus 24 strands versus 32, blah, 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 that will impact speed and performance in a bow. And I think this was all done to maybe throw a jab at a major manufacturer that, is touting performance with the bows by building custom strings that will work really well with a certain manufacturer. So you kind of get the gist of
And
what
they're saying there's nothing you can do
Nope.
to the string
Nope.
to make it better.
Nope. Make it,
Aside from cutting strand count
yeah,
and
right. Make it better, make it faster, make it more accurate, so on and so forth.
I have always said that all of these string makers that we have out there, they have to have some way to differentiate their product from the other ones, right?
Correct.
Ours have lower stretch, ours are this, but the real, difference with the string manufacturers is the quality of craftsmanship and actually putting the string together.
Yes.
And whether if the servings stay and if the servings match, and can you put them on and the bow is almost in tune, or if I give them a set of lengths and I put it on the bow has to get the exact right draw length and the exact right poundage, right? And that would be a perfect effort on making a set of strings.
Correct.
Right? So I don't disagree with there's not a whole lot you can do, but you can change the material, like use less cladding, less wax, use a waxless material, because effectively you can make the string lighter, and that'll make performance. It'll make it faster.
Correct.
You can make, this is another hot topic, you can make the ends of the string, I don't even talk about this because I don't want to argue with people, but the ends of the string where it goes around the cam,
Yep.
if you make that more pliable, you get a better tune, you get better speed, and applying the nocks to the string below the cam doesn't change the speed like it normally would in a string with rigid, serving that's super, you got to bend it into shape to just put it on.
Right.
So there are some things that can be done, but does this manufacturer they're talking about have a quality product? Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's a quality product, or otherwise they wouldn't be the front runner in the industry, with their product, right?
Right.
So, but I know a gazillion different string manufacturers, and as long as the lengths are correct and the craftsmanship holds it together, that it'll shoot great, and I'll get peak performance out of it too.
Yeah. And I've seen certain manufacturers where you do pick up velocity, you will pick up repeatability in the tune. You'll pick up where, I hate to say it, but you can leave it in your car and for 12 hours in 110 degree heat, and it doesn't affect the stretch rate of the string, or you don't lose poundage. To your point, I think it's about craftsmanship.
Absolutely. It's like being exact with the strand tension as you're laying up the string will make a difference. It's whether if it creeps a little or not, right?
Right.
How much wax is on it, how many strands you got, what size serving that you put on it, all those things that change the mass of the string will change the performance.
Okay, so two questions.
There has to be a mass fluctuation.
Correct. So two questions in relation to strings that are part of this topic that we're talking about now, the gotchas in the industry. Served end loops or non-served end loops, or does it matter?
I never served my end loops, and PSE has never served their end loops, maybe up until recently, but all through the 80s and 90s, no end loops are. That is a very low stress area.
Correct.
So, and there's no movement or action in that area. So I think if you want to serve them, great. If you don't want to serve them, you don't have to.
Yeah. I think it's a marketing thing. String
Yeah,
manufacturers can
it's-
take the pretty picture of the serving and it's perfect around the loop. And
Yeah, well, I say I never serve my end loops. That's actually wrong. I don't open the jig and use my serving tool,
You tag it.
to serve the end loops. What I do, in the very first tuning video that I made 100 years ago, I showed everybody how to make bowstrings, and I figured out on camera and had to reshoot it's like, what do you do with those tag ends? You know, once you've laid the string, do you tie a knot in them? You know, what do you do? So I served the end loops by wrapping the tag ends just to kind of lock them in, and it holds the loose strands, you know, more tighty, so you can put it on and off the anchor easier. So I've been doing it like that ever since. So technically it's served, but it's not served with a second material.
Correct.
And I always did that because I didn't want to turn the jig and maybe alter the length, right? I always wanted to keep my pins, you know, pin to pin, so I could measure and control that, and then make my string and put the appropriate number of twists, and it comes out the right length, right?
Yeah,
I did it for just length consistency.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I've taught all the string makers that I've taught through the years. Tag end loops is what I use. We call them tag end loops, and they're just more efficient. It's quicker. And like you said, non-stress load-bearing part of the string. The served end loops look pretty. They have a pretty look to them. It's for marketing. I just don't think it's a needed, necessary thing.
Yeah, if you want to make the most beautiful string out there, serve those puppies. You know, it looks way better.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one. This is a good one. Speed knocks or no speed knocks?
So there's your thing, right? The pliability of the string matters for overall accuracy and performance, right? So if you have the string, right, if it's pliable, speed knocks won't do anything for you, right? They'll just be riding along. They won't hurt you. They won't help you.
Right.
But if you have the rigid string material, there's loss of performance when the string material is rigid. So by putting the mass of the string knocks on there, that holds the string into the track. So as the cam turns, it peels up string. It's not peeling up slack, right? So when you add that mass, that's why you get that few extra feet per second by putting them on. That's why that works. But the configurations of string knocks where they've got them spaced, or whether if they're all stacked together, or, you know, whatever, that's kind of a personal preference thing. If you have a yoke, right, you may not want all of them together because that mass may cause your string to hit your yoke. So when you spread them out a little, it doesn't deflect quite as much. So I don't think you're hurting yourself, but you may not be helping yourself either. So I don't think anybody would be harmed one way or the other.
Right. I've always had the opinion, and none of it's probably proven, but we've done a little bit of study talking about string, the lifetime of a string, and I've always thought when you put 24 speed knocks or brass knocks on the string, and you're getting a whipping inertia reaction to that string going through space, it's got to be breaking down fibers prematurely, other than not having any at all. We've kind of, for target archery, I've always never shot speed buttons hardly at all, because I want my string to be consistent. I don't want it to prematurely be breaking down over time while I'm shooting tournaments, you know. And can I notice that? Probably not. Is it in my head? Probably so. And I don't know.
It's dependent on your cam design, really. So if I have a cam back here, I can get my hands on. Let me see if I can grab a cam right quick out of the drawer.
Sure.
But when you have here's one. When you have a cam, all right, I'm going to hold this up here so you can see. Let's see if I can force the camera.
That's a spiral.
So when you have a cam, if you look right here where the groove is cut through, right? The groove doesn't end right here on this radius here. It ends all the way under here, right? On this side, right? It just ends all the way up under there. So when the string over travels and works boing, 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 boing because of the extra mass, if that ends abruptly, it'll chew the string up here close to the cam.
Correct.
But if that groove has a little follow through on it, you know, as they bring the tool through there, if it goes back and forth there where, you know, on the end of the cam right here, it won't slowly chew itself. It's just about, you know, enough clearance so that you're not bending that string over an edge.
Gotcha. That's good to know. So I want you to, real quick, and because I got something, Trainwreck wrote a good one over here we want to talk about here in a second, but one more time, talk me through that a really stiff string versus a more pliable string? And so the reason I'm asking is that I work with a string maker right now that's making a really good string, but he's serving under really high tension loads, and it's making the string extremely stiff. I mean, it's like you can shoot 500 arrows through it, and it's almost no change. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing based off what you were just talking about. And and he's always struggled with this speed buttons, no speed buttons. You would in your world, you'd like to see that string a little bit more pliable.
Yes, and that's just, you get greater consistency out of it, because what happens, let's see, I don't have a string I can demo with, but you've got this cam, right? And it's pulled back like this.
Mm-hmm.
And the string is coming off of the cam like that, right?
Correct.
And when the string is pliable and the cam begins to move, it's dragging the string in the track, right? The string pretty well stays in contact with the track all the way through.
Right.
If your string is stiff, what it'll do is when you let go, the string wants to stay straight because it's stiff. So the cam rotates a pretty good degree before the string is actually moved because of that stiffness, that rigidity, because it starts to go and the string wants to stay straight. So you end up with like a slack there.
Yeah, right.
That's why you lose the speed when the string buttons aren't there. And by putting the string buttons on, you're adding just a little mass to the string to kind of help the cam move with the string.
Makes sense. Yeah. Okay, that makes total sense. Gotcha. That's good.
And
to
you'll
know.
notice when you're working on it, if you put one knock, you might not get anything, and then you put two, and you can slide them up and down to kind of find the right spot where it has its greatest effect.
Right.
Add more, but you'll get to a point where if 3 is perfect, 1 more knocks your speed down, and it's too much.
Right.
Like there's kind of a little balancing act if you're trying to optimize it.
Right. That makes sense. Okay, that's awesome. Trainwreck had a good one, and there's 2 parts to this one. Your loop. I think you invented the torqueless loop, correct?
I didn't invent the torqueless D-loop. Clint Freeman from Australia,
Okay.
he invented it. He called it the P-loop, and he made it just like a circle of material, and then you put it on itself. I kind of modified that so it has a loop on each end, so you can fold it in half and then put it on itself. They're just
Right.
easier to make that way, and they last longer.
Okay.
But for target archery, I use them on my target bows. My hunting bows, I use a standard D-loop.
Okay.
I'll tell you why here in a second.
Okay.
But with a target bow, with a torqueless D-loop, right? Let's see, I've got one here somewhere. I'll pull it down. But I can have my hand in any rotation, and it has 0 effect on the string.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have a stiff D-loop material or a very short D-loop material, and your hand angle changes, the string and that D-loop deflects more or less.
100%.
And it can have an effect on your left and rights at distance, at target archery level precision.
Correct.
Right? Bow hunters who are shooting, big groups with hunting arrows. This is a target archery thing that's for ultimate target archery. I'm not telling this to the tack guys and the bow hunters. You go ahead and just shoot your D-loops because they're more practical. I can put my release on a D-loop without looking down at it.
Correct.
But with a torqueless loop, I have to actually look at it to get my jaws on it, right?
Right.
So I don't use the torqueless in the woods.
Gotcha.
Right. But with its torsion resistance, right? And when I get it up here close to my face, it's just a little tiny amount of material here close to my face and the arrow knot, so it helps me get really good face clearance. Right?
Gotcha.
So that's why I use it, and once I show it to, everybody on my team, they look at it and they go, okay, this makes sense. They try it. They shoot better with it, so all my people have one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worth the trouble, right? To put it on and try it if you're a target shooter.
So you've seen tested results where you're getting better scores, you're seeing better groups, better efforts coming out of that change.
Absolutely.
Wow.
This target archery, yeah.
From a target perspective, right? And it makes total sense. I mean, I've dabbled with them over the years, trying to even make my own. because it makes sense, total sense, especially, you know, with these loops. And loop length is something I struggle with a lot of people too, because, you know, the bow hunters for years maximize draw length, maximize cam efficiency. They shoot those little bitty 1/4 inch long loops. They're tiny. And then shoot a hen or shoot a button and, you know, ramp it up on their face vertical. And I've even showed it to people, just taking that loop with like a 24 material, and you can turn it and it will turn that string like a mild S. And I'm thinking,
Oh yeah.
so now your knock release point is being compromised because of that. That thing's got to go back to neutral straight, you know, as it's going through its dynamic shot process, and those things matter. Because one of the things, so I've been educating the heck out of the guys, and even Jason, I know Jason shoots a monster loop on his bow now. You know, I even shoot a pretty fairly long loop to create that torque, to make it torqueless, to your point, but.
Yeah, the longer it is and the more pliable the material is made out of, it'll also be torqueless, right?
To a point,
The common stiff material you see on a lot of bow hunting setups, that will actually torque just because the material is so hard that it doesn't leave any room for, you know, angle differences.
So I think the greatest part of the torqueless D-loop, and this is part 2 of this question, because this is another polarizing topic that I've fought for decades, is the guys who tie in the double top and bottom safety knots and then put their loops around them. Because I am of the opinion you only need it on the bottom, because when you're drawing a bow back, all the pressures are moving up. I've never had a serving drop on me. I've never had a D-loop drop on me. They're always going up because of the design of the bow being taller on the top than it is the bottom. The pressures are always moving north. And you got a lot of guys, you know, they tie the safety knots on the top and the bottom, and then they don't realize that if it's tight at static and you're a 30-inch draw and you draw it back, the knock pinch is atrocious. I mean, it's an issue.
Right.
And it's something I've had to...
And I've fixed guys' groups just by cutting one of those knots off.
100%.
And then boom, it totally transforms.
Yeah, exactly. But they, you know, if you watch 9 out of 10 videos on bow setups, these guys are telling you to tie double knots. You know, double knots first, tie it on the knock, and then put your D-loop around it. You know, I've always been bottom only. But in your situation with a torqueless D-loop, or you're just tying a top safety knot to keep the knot from sliding up because your loop is underneath, and you've almost theoretically eliminated a lot of that feature because you don't have a big knot on top creating the pinch.
Yeah. And I also use biter knocks because they're designed to give relief, you know, when you pull, so that they won't ever pop off of the string or, you know, anything like that as well. But that's a whole other thing. But the loop itself is the bottom knock, basically. And when you release the bow, the arrow always slides downwards, the string as it starts to push the arrow.
Correct.
So the bottom knock, whether if it's there holding your D-loop placement or if it's the torqueless being there and it's got a little stopper knot on top just to stop the arrow from sliding up the string. The bottom knot runs the show.
Correct.
So if I'm doing a little tuning thing and I want to move it just the tiniest bit, I can untwist my torqueless D-loop and move it down a serving thread and then shoot it again and see if that result was better or not. Right. So there's a lot of stuff you can do. You know, when you change the bottom knock, the tear changes. But most people just move their rest these days, so they don't even realize that.
Yeah, and that changes the. I mean, I always on the string because it changes your hold. I mean, we all know the tricks in raising the D loop will get your hold better, so on and so forth. So I think that D loop is. You know, it's funny. I shot with you know, Brian Stokes. Brian, I think he used to run Brian's lenses. He knows you, but
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. I'd have to see his face.
He's at all the ASAs, and I worked on his bow. He had a Tritech that he was having some issues with, and I fixed it for him. And I noticed he had the torqueless D loop on there. And so this is a subject matter that just happened like last week. And I called him and said, "Hey, how do you like that D loop?" Now Brian says it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. He's like, anybody who's shooting ASA 3D archery not shooting the torqueless D loop's an idiot, more or less. And because he says it helped his accuracy times 1,000. He changed to it.
It's significant.
Yeah. So it's something I was excited to talk to you because it's something I'm probably going to step back and try again. Now, let me ask you a question.
Dude, I tried building them myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's impossible.
No, I looked
Dude,
like
who is the best torqueless D-loop builder out there?
Leo
Torqueless
is the one that has been supplying the world with torqueless
Really?
D-loops.
Leo, my man.
Gotcha. Okay. That's good to know.
He can whiz those puppies up. One of these days, I'll get off my duff and make him a machine that'll actually spin them, but I ain't got time for that right now.
So, in relation to that, when you do go to a torqueless D-loop, do you have to shoot a longer throated knock because of where the pressure on the string is at? Like, I could imagine if you're shooting a short little HD pin knock, you might have some release problems. Not release, but I mean the knock releasing off the string at full draw.
I think he's using the
Yeah, it's 100%
asymmetricals, right?
dependent on your.
They're the hunters.
Yeah, it's 100% dependent on your axle to axle length.
Okay.
And your draw length.
Okay.
So if you have those really short throated knocks, like the little pin knocks and stuff, that if the string angle is great enough, it can pinch off of there. So
Okay.
I use biter knocks because they wear the longest. They don't wear out near as fast as any of the others. But they're also the asymmetric design. The throat is angled the way that it needs to be angled, so that when you go to full draw, the knock is optimal on the string at full draw, not at rest.
And those only go on one way.
Yeah.
Yeah, they only go on one way, and you got to shoot. You got to have that, right, because you'll miss by 8 inches if you don't. But that threat of accidentally knocking one upside down is worth it to me for the additional accuracy that I get.
That you get from the other
because
side.
So you're not using
making
the
that
hunters. You're
mistake is
using the
rare for me now.
asymmetrics.
I'm using the asymmetrics. Hunters also work, but I use the asymmetrics because
Noted.
without proper scientific data, I feel like I'm more accurate with those.
We will put that to the test.
Right, that's the best I can say there.
Gotcha.
Hey, what are you doing after this?
Yeah. I'm going to go shoot some asymmetricals.
Yeah, no kidding.
And if I knock one upside
So-
down, guess what? I just put a vein upside down.
Yeah.
So George, I got a question about.
All you
so
got to do is look at it.
I
you know,
tried
just look at it.
I tried the biters 2 years ago because of Jason. Jason talked me into
The
trying it.
hunters.
And my issue with them was, and I talked to Danny McCarthy about it. I actually was doing really, really well in a tournament, and I ended up blanking a target. I shot it short, and what happened was it's the only knock that I know that can be broke and still snap on your string. So in other words, when I went to mount that knock, it snapped in there like it normally would have, and then I shot it, and when I did, it exploded, and I made it like 10 yards. I mean, the arrow just buried right in front of me pretty much.
So it actually left the bow.
It left the bow, yeah. But it didn't dry fire,
Okay.
thank goodness. It took the energy transfer, but because the knock, I think, was compromised prior to it. But I was surprised, and I checked all of them, and I had 2 of them in my quiver. Now, my fault. I was on the bags group tuning, and I probably hit a couple. But it was amazing to me that I could actually put them on the string, and they would snap on, just like a normal knock would. And Danny told me, he says, man, if you're going to shoot biters, you just got to check them all the time.
So here's the deal. I spoke with Andreas. He's the GM out there at Biter at Lancaster this year. And he mentioned to me that people were breaking knocks on certain arrow brands or certain pin brands.
Yes.
Okay.
And what he had said was that the pins on a couple of manufacturers aren't made exactly to Easton spec.
Okay.
And I can't remember whether if it was a hard edge or whether if it was a radius edge was the problem. I can't remember. But there's an edge that's out of place, which puts a lot of pressure. It's the mouth of the knock, not the groove of the knock that's busting.
Correct.
Because the pin is essentially splitting the knock apart. So if whatever arrow you got, if you get a pin that is Easton spec, you won't have any problems.
No issues. Okay.
It's like made to the patent of the pin knock, so biters are made of a little bit more brittle material. That's why they last a long time, right? And that's why the ears are kind of a compliant mechanism.
They're very
When you
flexible,
push
yeah.
the string in there, they spread very
Yes.
easily.
Yes.
Right? It lasts a long time because of that. But if the pin's out of spec, it can shatter just from the
impact and
strength of the
Yeah.
bow hitting it.
Yeah, that's exactly the issue
So
that I
it's
had.
the pin is what really is the issue. So if you're busting knocks like that, just change the pins.
Okay.
Yeah, so
And it'll fix it.
I had that issue last year. We were in Mexico at a tournament down there, and my knocks were breaking from the inside. It's almost like the tip of that pin. So my knocks were fitting really loose, and it was almost like it was causing a whiplash, and it was cracking them from the inside. I was using like a flow green color, like a flow yellow. But then I switched over to, I think KJ Polish had some dark blue or something like that. That was a bit thicker material or felt a little bit stiffer. And I made it through the tournament. But I had to switch because my pins were breaking all the knocks. And I was just shooting, I think it was 4mm, the Parallel Pros with Easton pins. And I don't know if I just had a bad set of pins or if they just didn't work with that.
It sounds like you might have had a bag of old knocks that might have been dry rotted or something. Because if you were using Easton pins, they should have been in spec.
Yeah.
And if the inside is breaking instead of the ears, that's what I would think.
So it's weird. I've never had
But
trouble with
I would
my
first
Black
blame it on the
Eagles.
pins.
No.
Not at all.
I love this guy. Great, that's all.
Here we go.
Love you,
Here
Coach.
we go. Here we go. No, that's good info though, and like I said, there was one of the couple of things I wanted to talk to you about because, like I said, that loop thing was always a good topic of discussion, but it seemed to catch on in certain areas, like you said, all your shooters are shooting it, and then it kind of went away for a long time. But then when I seen Brian's bow the other day, I was kind of surprised, and him and I had a long discussion about it, and it was kind of cool to hear his thoughts on it. So.
Yeah,
That's
I get a lot of, well, if it was any good, all the pros would use it.
Yeah.
And I go, well, that's not necessarily the case. I said, but Clint Freeman, he was multi-world record holder. And Roger Willett, he's like the Chuck Norris of archery. He shot
yeah.
torqueless D-lips the whole time.
Yeah.
And I've shot them since Clint came out. I think he invented those in like the mid-'90s is when he showed up with
Yeah.
them. And we all were looking at what he was doing. It was like, oh,
Yeah.
I see you're doing something different there. And with just a minute of playing with it, we figured it out pretty dang quick.
Oh, yeah. So last question. I know we got to wrap it up, but we've been on here a long time. And I've been dying to talk to someone about this at your level because we talked about this on our podcast last week. I kind of want to get your take on it. I've been shooting this sport for 40-some years. I'm afraid of what's happening to our sport right now, whether is it losing its luster? Is it viable now as a professional sport? Are we leaving something for our kids to aspire to as they grow as archers? I hear this a lot from kids that I coach, and they're 12, 14, 15 years old. Is there going to be a professional ranks for me to do this, or am I going to have to get a full-time job and do this as a hobby at the highest level that I can? I'm sure the manufacturer's support from a contractual standpoint is waning. They're starting to look at more return on investment per archer and what they bring to the table. I think that's the wrong way of looking at it. I mean, I always argue that, do you think that NASCAR sells more Ford, Chevys, and Toyotas by being NASCAR? That's just not, no. It's a validation point for the quality of their products, potentially. There's 5 golfers that move the needle for the manufacturer that they represent in the golfing world. The other 200 pros that are out there playing on the tour have zero ability to impact sales, even though they are fully sponsored by probably every manufacturer on the planet.
I think that's part of the manufacturer's problem, but go ahead.
But so my question is that, in a perfect blue sky world, what are the answers? Because I came out of the bass fishing world when we signed Walmart, a non-endemic sponsor, to take over, who did not care whether you were using a Shimano, Quantum, Abu Garcia. They just didn't care. All they wanted was billboards on the side of those trucks and boats traveling the country. And when we did that, it right-sided our sport and made it a viable professional sport. They were paying some pretty big money for pros to travel and represent those products. But they never tied into sales. It was more as a marketing campaign. They looked at it and said, they're a moving billboard. we pay $3,000 a month for a billboard that has 10,000 cars an hour to drive by. Well, now we've got a vehicle at two three quarters less cost to invest in that's traveling 20,000 miles a year driving across the country fishing. I am of the opinion our manufacturers are in the way. I mean, I don't like contingency. I think it's the wrong way to do it. It's making the sport one-sided. The manufacturers that have the money to pay the contingency are ruling the roost, controlling some of the ways the sport's moving. I think we desperately need a non-endemic who's going to look at things a whole lot different and give something for our young people to aspire to. Because right now, with the Olympic Games being here in 2028, we're seeing a big pickup. In that, we're seeing a lot of people, man, I want to go try that. I shoot on the Senior Pro Tour in the ASA world, and I've talked to all the guys, and we're all in our mid-50s, and we're like, heck yeah, we're going to go try it, and it's a childhood dream of ours, shooting the Olympics, and now we have a compound opportunity. Are we going to make it? Probably not. On any given Sunday, can we do it? You never know. But I guess, roundabout question, what do you think we're heading? I mean, what do you think we need to do as an organizational, all the organizations to help elevate the sport back to where it needs to be to give these kids, something to aspire to?
Well, I've been in archery long enough, being a Generation Xer, I was there when compounds kind of happened, and everybody was making all kinds of crazy designs, trying to figure out what a compound is going to be. And now the design of a compound has stabilized, and everybody's bow is using the same stuff, right?
Right.
So we're pretty much have perfected the compound. I'm not saying new innovations will show up, but we pretty much have perfected it.
Agreed.
And as far as getting a non-endemic sponsor, I've been in the room, during a few of those conversations, and they're going, okay, well, great. Archery's cool. I shot archery as a kid. Yeah. We'd love to talk to you about, maybe doing some sponsorships with archery. And it's like, okay, well, how many people come to this event? And we're like, oh, we have, let's say Vegas, we have 4,000 competitors and up to about 15,000 people if you count family. And they're like, oh, okay. How many views do you get on TV? Oh, well, we're not on TV yet. We're hoping that you're going to get us on the TV.
Right.
Okay. And there's how many people do this particular game of target archery? Probably about 8,000.
Yep.
And the conversation shifts to, okay, when we think about potential viewers or potential impressions for our product and we're considering our ad spend, we're thinking in the millions of viewers, millions. And you guys are talking to me in the thousands. So you're not, archery just isn't there yet, right?
Well, how is professional pillow fighting there? And
because it's novel, and they'll have 200,000 people sign up or show up to watch it, right, on TV. It's like cornhole.
Cornhole's a big one.
Yeah, I sent you that video, remember, years ago? Like, what the heck are we doing wrong?
Cornhole, darts, the main thing that those particular sports have is they have a leader who put his own money in the game, who got it on TV, who got it in front of people, and they decided that they liked it, and they made a production and a show out of it, just like what Wayne Pearson was doing for the ASA way back when we had Pennzoil as a sponsor, Budweiser.
Oh, yeah.
We had real
Anheuser-Busch.
sponsors.
Yeah.
And they got up his ass because they thought he was making too much money and he was skimming and the pros weren't making enough. And he goes, fine, you guys do it. And he left.
Yeah.
Because in archery, we consume ourselves all the time.
100%.
Right? So we had a guy out there who was doing it. He was moving, right? And they stopped him, right? And you look at, Bruce Cole from the NFAA. He's got friends and he's got, naysayers and or haters. But the year before the NFAA bought the Vegas shoot, I was shooting off for $1,600. The very next year, we shot off for $10,000, right? So well, that's an example of a leader that's actually like pushing it forward and keeping his,
Right.
keeping his, business and activity focused on actually growing the sport, right? But there'll be people out there hate on him because they're not doing it. He's not doing it the way they want to do it, kind of thing.
Right.
So I think that we're our own problem, and we need a leader who is actually going to step forward and let's see, someone's trying to call me. We need a leader to step forward, buy the TV time, right? Put us out there, because basically, if it costs $50,000 to air a 30-minute show, somebody's got to pay for that at first, or otherwise, no Coca-Cola or Gatorade or whatever, no, they're not even going to look at us because we don't have the viewership.
Right.
I don't think we have to change the game either. I think we just have to show it to people and use color commentary and all that, similar to what they do in Formula One.
Yep.
There's all kinds of extra stuff to make you understand what's happening and what's going on and the whole bit, but nobody's filming and producing archery events at that level.
Right.
Cam Media is doing the best job anybody's ever done, but it's still nothing close to what they do with, other sports, as far as like getting the audience involved with what's going on. Because archery is pretty boring. You pull it back, you get still for a few minutes, and then the arrow flies away. And no matter how far it is, what target you're shooting at, or whether if it's in the woods or in a field or whatever, it's the same exact shot.
Yeah.
But in golf, you can make decisions, and you can bend the shot, and you can lay up, and you can play the game, where archery, we pull back, aim, and let go.
Yeah.
And there's nothing fancy to that. So we need color commentators to create drama.
To create drama, exactly. That was one of the
things. And
we
can't do that, because you say anything bad about a pro shooter, the whole world jumps up your butt.
Maybe we just need a Happy Gilmore.
Yeah, well, look what happened. Look what happened. You make one comment about one piece of equipment on a bowstring, and the whole world came to an end in 24 hours.
Yeah. A guy for a video decided to cut his nose button off, and everybody lose their minds. And it's like, hey, y'all, I was giving y'all a dope-ass tip there, and you totally missed it.
Totally.
So good luck with y'all and your archery.
Yeah. Well, and that's way to come full circle, that's for sure. Because and I agree with you. I think some of it is eating our own. And I also, I think it's going to take, I hate to say it, but you've got 4 organizations, and heck, you can say 5 now, trying to battle for the top, battle for supremacy in attendance, battle for supremacy in dollars. And I think it's going to take someone to, I hate to say it, buy them all, fire everybody, and start over. Because there's only one MLB. There's only one NFL. There's only one, PGA. Look what happened to Live Golf. Live Golf came about and tried to make itself viable. But it's going to take one leading organization to run the show, and everyone else kind of have to fall into place, I hate to say it, because there's too many events, there's too many ways to go. You can be a professional in NFA, you can be a professional in USAT, you can be a professional in ASA, and heck, now you've got the darn TAC guys to throw in there. And it's so convoluted. I think there's not a common message, and to your point too.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that 3D and TAC has the hardest time actually being viable on TV, because the general cross-section of public, they're shooting arrows at animals, right?
Yep.
But if any game that doesn't involve an animal, just a bullseye or something like that, you're going to get a much broader viewership.
Yep.
Because
it's safe.
It's not a polarizing thing
Right.
to shoot out a piece of paper.
Yeah, you don't have PETA climbing down your throat. Well, the other thing too is that, and you said it a second ago, we don't get involved with finding out who these shooters are, their stories. Like, Trainwreck, Jason. Nobody knows their story, so no one has been color commentating enough that, Rod White to get in front of Trainwreck and talk about where he came from, how he does things, where he, what he's went through, what Jason has went through, which you see in every other sport. You practically know Tiger Woods' entire life story, or Rory McIlroy, these guys that are, the esteemed baseball players you get with Papa Aaron Judge. You know everything about him. I mean, because we've done a good job of
Yeah,
explaining.
they do that for the drama.
Correct. And it personalizes the sport. We have done a horrible job of that on our side. I mean, as a matter of fact, I don't think we do it at all.
Yeah, that's actually something Jay and I have talked about. Like, hey,
Yeah.
dude, especially on the para side, we've all got really good stories. At least most of us have, something where it's like, hey, we weren't born shooting a bow, but this is where we've landed based on,
Yeah.
our new normal.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, good stuff. Well, George, we just wanted to make sure and give you a chance to talk through what we just talked about with the whole nose button thing. I thought it was hilarious. I'm glad you came on board with
Yeah,
us
that's
tonight.
probably the craziest post I've ever seen, but it was so worth it.
Oh, dude. If anything, you got relevant real quick if anybody didn't know who you were.
It was like, who is this George Ryals
Exactly.
guy lying to us? Yeah.
I bet your Google searches exploded last night with all these new generation kids shooting their bow. Who's George Ryals?
I'm going to have to go back on that
If
post.
I could ever
and
figure out how to convert that to money, I'll be in business.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to go back on that post and comment and put the link to this podcast
Heck
on
yeah,
there.
yeah. You want to know? Here's a
Heck
real
yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, George,
know.
man,
Yeah,
we
do it. Get in there
yeah.
and just say, hey, we're having our say here. Boom.
Absolutely.
And
Hey,
yeah.
I
I'll
commented
get
on there.
tarred and feathered at the next shoot.
I just want you to know I commented on there, but it had nothing to do with anything going on.
Yeah.
I just let somebody know that we don't shoot archery at the Special Olympics.
Did somebody say Special Olympics?
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
I
Yeah,
haven't
but like
been able to
Leah's
read all
mom,
of it.
remember
It was
that?
like 300.
Somebody said that somebody was shooting without their arms with their feet at the Special Olympics.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Oh,
I've
yeah.
never seen that at the Special Olympics, but it's all good.
People are stupid. Well, George, man, we appreciate you. Second time you've been on, and I love talking with you. You're old school like I am, and man, we just tell it like it is. And I think we need to try to find a way to stay relevant in this world because there is so much information out there now, some good, some bad, and I think there needs to be some level of sanity talking through the real reasons, the real stuff. Because honestly, it's misguiding a lot of people that could end up leaving our sport because they don't do well with it, and they're going to go pick up their video games or their rifles or and leave the sport of archery. I think we owe it to our community to make sure that we're doing the right things, and that's where that's when I'll challenge the social media people. I mean, stay in your lane, know who you are, know where you came from, know what you're capable of, and like you said earlier, I've seen it every day. I see young ladies now that have been shooting a bow 6 months and giving tips and tactics on TikTok. It blows my mind.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is if you don't agree with something, it's okay.
It's okay,
We can disagree and still be friends.
Exactly.
We can debate it back and forth, and I won't be mad at you when it's over with. It's okay. We can talk about this, and if you don't want to do it, don't do it.
Right.
If you want to give it a try, go ahead. If it works, keep doing it. Right?
Absolutely.
Because nobody's trying to beg them to do it.
No. So, we appreciate
right out there
you,
for them.
George. You're the man. I always said it, and you continue to say it. So we appreciate you greatly. Hope you have a great evening, and we'll get this thing out there and let you tell your side of the story on some of these wives' tales. All right.
Love you,
Have a good
Coach.
one.
All right. Thank you very much.